Sending your kid to camp. An absolute rite of passage that is often harder on the parents than on the kids. But as a parent, I certainly have the expectation that if I send my kid to camp, that he'll at least come back. Jeff Hodgson's parents had the same expectation, and with good reason. But Jeff's camping trip sets new records in the FUBAR department and quickly earns the title of the trip from hell. This trip should have been abandoned about 12 hours after it got started. And I realize it's easy to play armchair quarterback, but let's go through this train wreck disaster by disaster. Jeff Hodgson is an 11-year-old in the summer of 1974 and signs up for a wilderness survival camping trip offered by the Department of Environmental Community Services of Idaho that would bus 11 kids, 4 paid DECS supervisors, and 1 volunteer, followed by a Jeep acting as their support vehicle driven by another volunteer from Pocatello, Idaho, to an area just south of the southern border of Craters of the Moon National Monument, where they would hike through an area around the Crystal Ice Caves. On Saturday, June 8th, 1974, 9 boys and 2 girls between the ages of 9 and 11 leave Pocatello heading to Split Butte, about 10 miles southwest of the Crystal Ice Caves. As the group approaches the butte, the Jeep, the support vehicle, runs out of gas. The bus, still filled with kids, has to go back to the last gas station in American Falls, get gas for the Jeep, and go back to refuel it. This should have been a clue that this trip was going to be a tough one. Once the bus rescues the Jeep, they both head to an area 2 miles south of Split Butte and set up camp. The counselors divvy up enough dried food to last each kid for 6 days and tells them, put this in your pack and make sure you ration it evenly for the next 6 days. Each person also has a canteen of water and a blanket. The next day, Sunday, June 9th, the group spends the morning and afternoon going through various survival lessons, from how to catch small rodents in a trap, to finding a cave, to take cover from the heat if you ever get lost in the environment that they are in for this trip, namely blistering summer heat with daily temperatures over 100 degrees. By late afternoon on the first full day, the group has already started to run low on water. So they hike into the desert about 1.5 miles looking for a well or an oasis, but all they find is basically a big puddle with muddy, stale water. So the counselors make a new plan that the 2 support people will hike back to the Jeep and leave to go get more water and meet up with the group again the next day at an agreed upon rendezvous point. Meanwhile, the rest of the group is still so thirsty that they fill their water containers, drink the water, set up camp, and spend the night. The next morning, Monday, June 10th, the kids are split into 2 groups based on their hiking speed, and everyone leaves the Split Butte area to go meet the Jeep at the prearranged point. By noon, the group leaders figure out that they cannot find the rendezvous point. Now, as if a group of counselors lost in the desert with 11 kids and no water isn't bad enough, the supply Jeep, filled with water and understandably in a hurry to get back to the campers, barrels 50 miles an hour down the rough desert road heading for the meeting point. Unfortunately, but almost predictably, the Jeep hits a pothole or 2 that literally knocks the battery out of the car and into the dirt. The water supply lifeline is now a big paperweight back to the wandering campers. 2 of the 4 counselors decide to split from the group to see if they can locate the rendezvous point. The 2 remaining counselors decide to keep hiking with the kids looking for the supply truck. Temperatures at this time are near 100 degrees. As they trudge along, 1 counselor's in the front of the group and 1 in the rear. But 2 boys are lagging near the back of the group, 10-year-old Rocky Nelson and 11-year-old Jeff Hodgson. The longer the group walks, the further behind the 2 boys get. The last time a counselor can remember seeing them, they are a full 150 feet behind the group. Naturally, The trail has turns and hills, and around 5 p.m. that afternoon, they lose sight of the boys. One counselor, seeing the boys are no longer in sight, backtracks and finds Jeff's pack and what he assumes to be Jeff's prints going off trail from the pack. Now, there isn't any information as to what they did for the rest of that evening, but Tuesday morning around 9 a.m., one of the counselors goes back again to the area where Jeff and Rocky were last seen and ignites 2 large signal fires on top of a nearby butte. Unbeknownst to him and to everyone else in the group, Rocky has already found his way out of the desert and at around 10:30 a.m. that morning finds a farmer in the Minneapolis area who brings him to authorities. The signal fires don't bring back Rocky and Jeff, but they do bring on the search and rescue teams. This is an assumption on my part, but not finding the hikers at the rendezvous point by Monday night must have spurred the volunteers to go get some official help. Because throughout the day on Tuesday, search and rescue teams managed to find and rejoin all of the different splinters and get them back together again at the Crystal Ice Caves. Rocky is interviewed by law enforcement and camp counselors and tells a fascinating story. According to Rocky, during one of the group's hiking breaks in the desert, he and Jeff get tired and fall asleep. When they both wake up and see the group far ahead of them, they both scream at the group, "Wait!" But apparently, nobody hears them. And the counselors never bother taking a head count to ensure that they have all of the kids with them. Rocky says that he and Jeff stay together until Rocky decides to hike out for help. But it's not clear why Jeff and Rocky didn't stick together or where exactly they parted ways. But regardless of the circumstances, search and rescue know they have a little boy alone in the desert with no water, and the search gets underway. At 10 p.m. Tuesday night, Mr. Hodgson is advised that his son is missing. The plan of attack to find Jeff is basically to throw everyone and everything into the desert to look. Every day, hundreds of people, both volunteers and professional searchers, form ground search teams who, along with the Civil Air Patrol, Air Force, tracking dogs, helicopters, and almost every other tool imaginable, leave the comfort of air conditioning and spend the day in the 100-degree heat looking for a lost 11-year-old boy. And as if that's not a disaster enough, we're not done with the disasters. On Friday, June 15th, one of the searchers, Shirley Egan, who was out in that 100-degree heat, collapses and dies. Of course, now everyone involved in the search takes a mental step back to reassess the situation, because now the search itself is taking lives. After 10 days, the search is ended, and Mr. Hodgson is pissed. He asks the governor to step in and send out some National Guard soldiers to search. However, no one with any authority believes that Jeff can survive that many days in that kind of heat with that little amount of water. Private groups and volunteers keep searching, but the formal searches are over. Now, for those of you who need a break from this endless string of disasters, I have just a small one for you. Tuesday, June 18th, a 25-year-old man named Anthony Sturm from a nearby city of Blackfoot has a dream that shows him exactly where Jeff's body is. He's not able to join the search until about noon Thursday, June 20th, but when he finally gets to the area, Anthony walks through the desert, a little less than a mile to the west and a mile and a half south to a large rock where he finds Jeff's white straw hat, belt, boots, and socks. Jeff's body is lying at the base of that rock. The finding of Jeff stuns the search leaders, community, and his family because he's found in an area that's been completely covered by foot patrol, horses, four-wheel drive vehicles, motorcycles, helicopters, dogs, and dozens of people. So how did all of these resources miss him? When asked how he managed to find Jeff when seemingly no one else could, Anthony said, "You have to believe in God. I'm not a religious man or a lunatic, but I do believe in God. If you do it in the working spirit of God or with a feeling of God, God is through you and using you as an instrument." That's all I did. I just let it flow and it all came through. I felt like I was being guided right to him. I knew I was going to find him when I went out there. There was no doubt in my mind. Based on the state of decomposition of Jeff's body, the coroner states that Jeff probably died of heat stroke or heat exhaustion several days earlier. Do you remember earlier in the story when the counselor found Jeff's backpack and thought he saw Jeff's tracks leading away from it? Well, it was later determined that they weren't Jeff's tracks. They weren't even Rocky's tracks. So whose tracks were they? And how is it possible that Jeff's tracks were not there? Rocky said that he and Jeff had spent some time together before he took off alone to look for help. Why would Jeff not go with Rocky? And why would Jeff leave his backpack, his lifeline, behind? He didn't have a ton of survival gear in it, but whatever he did have, like food and a blanket, was all in that backpack. And how did every imaginable resource fail to find him? Was Jeff even there when the searchers came through? Obviously, we will never know the answers to these questions, or exactly what happened to Jeff Hudson.